here. Okay, I guess we're live. Hello and welcome to Premed Office Hours, episode 163. Jerry Seinfeld. What's going on, my friends? My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, host here, moderator here on Premed Office Hours. Make a live over here. Just make sure we're going live everywhere. Yeah, I'm a co-founder at Mapped, creative medical school HQ, author of some books, started the Premed Years podcast, MCAT podcast, Old Premeds podcast, specialty stories, so many podcasts. Too many in a name. Dina, how you doing, my friend? Dina
doing well. How about you?
On our medical school HQ advising team, former senior admissions officer at Stanford Medicine, and also part of the Brown University Warren Alpert Medical School as an advisor in their SMP program as well. What's going on?
Not much. How about you? Happy to see a lot of, interviews coming through, which is great.
Yes, we'll talk about our big interview sale here in a second, but lots of students taking advantage of our extreme mock interview discount going on right now. Courtney Lewis, speaking of interviews, you used to run interviews and all kinds of fun stuff at Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine as former director of admissions there. What's going on? What is your favorite thing about doing mock interviews?
Mock interviews? I like it because you can actually, there's tangible progress between the first time you meet and do a mock interview versus the second time versus the third time. And it makes such a huge difference. And as people become more comfortable, more confident in their answers, knowing how to kind of PR their way through things, having the insight as to why we ask certain questions, it's just fun to see because you meet some really remarkable individuals and get to help them feel confident going in because it makes a big difference on the interview day. So that's my favorite part.
Yeah, that confidence is huge.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things for me is I can tell a student, I'm like, you said all the right things, but you said it in the wrong way because you were like hiding in your shell going, hi, what's going on? Like, let's come out. And then what's funny during a mock interview is they'll, as soon as I'm like, okay, let's finish, they completely change their personality and their affect. I'm like, where was that person the whole time?
Yep.
So funny. I'm like, that's who I want to come out during an interview.
Yeah, I think the first time we meet with people, they kind of treat it like an exam. Like they're going in there, they're only giving the answer to the question, but they're kind of missing the point of we want to get to know you. We want to hear your thoughts, observations, reasonings, feelings about something. Have you work a problem? What do you like, dislike? And if you've only answered the prompt very succinctly, like you would an exam, you've missed the point. So, yeah.
You got it. All right. If you are new here, we are here for the next 53 minutes or so answering your questions. Consider this free pre-med advising for the hour. We are here almost every single Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. So come join us. Premed.tv is our YouTube channel where you can come and ask your questions. I mentioned mock interviews. Dina, you mentioned a lot of mock interviews coming in. Our schedule is filling up fast. We launched kind of a flash sale on mock interviews. Dina, you are a new advisor with us. We also have Dr. Christine Crispin, who is a newer advisor with us as well. So our availability for mock interviews has skyrocketed because we've added a couple advisors, and our previous advisors, Courtney, Dr. Scott Wright, and Verenia Granum, their schedules are opening up as well as the application season starts to slow down. So go get some mock interviews, just go to medicalschoolhq.net, click on that advising menu. Don't worry about copying that super long URL there that you are not going to get in time. Just go to medicalschoolhq.net, click on the advising tab, and go check it out. All right, let's rock and roll. We have any good questions coming in? All right, JB asks, I came to say I've gotten 5 interview invites. Hey, would you like to do some mock interviews? So far, I want to thank Mapped for all of the resources you post. My question is, what tips would you provide for interview day? My first is on Monday. Congrats. We do have a few spots left that you can get in a mock interview before Monday. If you haven't checked out my book, The Premed Playbook Guide to the Medical School Interview, I suggest you check that out as well. Dina and Courtney, I would love to hear both of your thoughts. We'll do a collective wisdom on this question. Dina, I'll start with you. Number 1 tip for interview day for the person. Let's assume, I don't know, would it be a different tip, virtual versus in person? I guess maybe split it up.
I mean, I've only partaken in virtual interviews during my time as senior MD admissions officer at Stanford. We had virtual MMIs. And I would say that my biggest tip is be prepared. And there's a big umbrella over that, because being prepared in so many different ways will help to make the day go smoother. Being prepared in terms of knowing, what you're going to wear, what your environment is going to look like. Do you have wired headsets? Do you need wired headsets for certain MMI platforms versus Bluetooth? Is your Wi-Fi, signal strong? Are you in a quiet place where you feel comfortable? Make sure that you're alone. Make sure that you're awake. If you are in a different time zone, it's the middle of the night. Preparing for all of those things. Those are kind of logistical. Mm-hmm. Preparing in terms of doing your research on the school. So if you really don't know a lot about the school, doing your research on the mission statement, on the curriculum, on diversity initiatives, just knowing anything and everything you can inside and out, and practicing. Practicing. If you have nobody to practice with or to do a mock with, record yourself. Find sample questions online, record yourself, giving an answer back. Do you not like the way you look on camera? Do you not like the way you sound on camera? Are you rambling? Are you not succinct enough? And lastly, for those kind of broad questions like why medicine and tell me about yourself, I think it really helps to kind of make a bulleted list ahead of time and use that for practice. So with tell me about yourself, what are 3 main points that you want admission officers to know? Why medicine? What are the 3 most important things to you? And that way, practicing that, you're not going off on a tangent and rambling and then forgetting what your main goal was in terms of deliverables.
Awesome. Courtney?
I agree. Practicing verbal responses. You have to practice orally. You can't just think in your mind, okay, I'm going to bring this up, or if they ask about this, I'll use this example. You have to say it out loud. It makes a big difference. So practice that ahead of time. I would say for the day of, be engaged, right? I used to do the introductory presentation, and sometimes you can tell if people are kind of checked out, right? They're getting up to go and get drinks. They're away from the screen. They're kind of looking at something else over here. You're on all day, whether you're in person or doing virtual, and be professional. It should go without saying, but unfortunately it doesn't. Be polite to everyone that you meet. Everybody matters. They're all running the school, right? The admin assistant, the janitor, the security guard, the person that's checking you into the breakout room. Everybody should have respect, and you should have polite encounters, professional encounters with them. Just because they may not be what you think is a decision maker doesn't mean that you don't act professionally for them, because I can tell you it makes a difference, and that information does get back. So that's not a threat. It's just, If I don't want somebody who's going to be rude to somebody, you know, one of the staff members on campus. I don't want that. So be polite, be engaged, do your research. Yes, practice verbally. If you're there in person, wear comfortable shoes. You'll probably get a tour of the school and you'll be walking around in between areas for your interview. So comfortable shoes. And I would say, again, if you're going in person, know where you need to be ahead of time. In the morning, you know, maybe you think you're going to be on time, but then you can't find parking or you can't find the building or the room, and it really frazzles you. And then you go in already kind of being frazzled later than you wanted. So if you have the time, go and check out where it is, identify it the day before, the night before, or give yourself enough of a buffer that you know that's not going to be a problem. So those would be my quick tips.
All right. Some good information there. Hopefully will be helpful for you, JB, and others. Right. Let's bring those questions coming. Shrey asks, do pre-meds need clinical volunteering from a range of experiences, or can we stick with one experience across 3 or 3.5 years? The age-old quality versus quantity question that seems to come up a bunch. Dina, when you're looking at an application going, who is this student? Have they been getting some experiences that we would generally expect students to get? And you see a student have 4 or 5 different clinical experiences that are maybe 6 months at a time versus one really long clinical experience. What does that say to you between those two applications?
I mean, I think that there's something to be said for having a longitudinal experience that is more in depth and that you are pouring energy and effort into because it's meaningful to you. It shows commitment, it shows dedication, it shows that you have interest in one particular area. I think it's fine to gain other experiences, to gain exposure, but to have too many, it becomes very clear and obvious that you're just trying to check off boxes for your application, and that's not necessarily something that you'd want to do. So I don't think it's necessary to have more than one if you have one that is, you know, very meaningful and in-depth. But it also is great to get exposure. And to familiarize yourself with different kinds of clinical environments and different kinds of populations to volunteer with in some capacity.
All righty. That is the answer. Yeah, there will be schools out there that will say, we expect multiple, right? And there are other quote unquote pre-med experts online speaking to pre-med clubs going, you need to get 3 shadowing experiences, one with a primary care provider, one with a specialist. And I'm just like, when was the last time you tried to shadow a doctor? It's almost impossible to get one person, let alone 3. And so, yeah, it's hard. There's no right way. Super hard. All right. Kashina. Question, GPA on gradual decline. Did you use Mapped for that? You should use Mapped for free to calculate your GPA and see those trends, which is not optimal, but okay from 383 to 355. After a major change from nursing to bio, should I worry? Should I do a master's to show academic integrity? I would probably use the word academic ability. Integrity means you're cheating. We'll take the MCAT soon. Yeah, there's a lot to parse here, Courtney. When you look at this, is there enough information to give a good answer, or should Kashina take this to Map?
No. Yeah, this needs quite a bit more information because those little nuances and details will matter. Nursing classes are going to be different, even if it's under the same category, like microbiology for nursing students. some of those classes won't be accepted by medical schools, so some things may need to be taken under different departments that you may not be aware of. The GPA kind of having a gradual decline may not be problematic is if you're taking kind of those core competency classes and you're getting, B pluses or, B minuses and things like that. If it's yo-yoing or, there are semesters where it's just truly getting kind of worse and worse with grades, you're not getting any A's anymore or things like that, then it matters. But again, we'll need a lot more information, and a master's and a postbac isn't just kind of like duct tape where it's fix it all. They need to be done purposefully and strategically. So I'd follow up on this because there's information and suggestions will vary.
Yep. All right.
And I'd be careful with taking the MCAT also. Switching from nursing to bio, depending on what classes you have taken and under what department, I would be cautious with the MCAT.
Yep. Always that's always the caveat that we give with nursing majors, whether you're switching or not. I recorded an old Premeds episode yesterday from a nursing student wanting to now go to med school. A lot of that switch, students aren't familiar with the fact that the biochemistry for nursing majors is not typically a prereq, not considered a prereq for medical school. The allied health, biochemistry, biology, chemistry, et cetera, are not the same level of academic rigor that medical schools are expecting for their prereqs. So just keep in mind. Awesome. Sticks Son 98. What is it from Big Daddy? My mom said that Styx is the greatest rock band. I forget the exact quote.
You have so many Big Daddy quotes.
I love Big Daddy.
You
It's
do.
so good.
So many.
It's such a good movie.
It is a good movie.
I had my first interview and I felt I came off as warm and personable. However, I lost my train of thought once and awkwardly worded some things. Will these shortcomings affect my chances? Dina, this student was not perfect. Are they going to be okay?
They're going to be okay. Because they were themselves. And it's just one piece of the whole puzzle. It's just one piece. You're going to be okay. It's not a make or break moment.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, right? I think students often have this thought that they're expected to be perfect and that they're not allowed to be human. And those people on the other side of the computer screen or the other side of the desk or whatever are not empathetic to the situation that student's in, being in this stressful, high pressure, like, oh my gosh, this is my career, my life on the line. And it's like, they understand that. So give yourself some grace because they are as well.
If people weren't at least a little nervous, I would think that they didn't care. Right?
Yeah.
It's okay to be a little nervous and fumble a little bit. Yeah.
Idris, good afternoon. Is submitting recommendation letters from the shadowing experiences of different health professions a good idea? Woo! So, applying to medical school and they shadowed a PA. Courtney, if you were reviewing that application and you saw, right, two different scenarios, no physician letters, but a PA letter, or a physician letter and a PA letter. Any issues with that?
I like the second. I like the second one better. I understand, like, putting myself back in the director's shoes, I can understand that it's maybe a bit hypocritical to tell me exactly why you want to be a physician, thinking that you've not explored any other opportunity and kind of grown and organically come to this, but I don't necessarily want to hear about it. So I would say proceed with caution on that. You're applying to become a physician. Keep the focus on that. If you think the letter is going to be particularly strong, okay, I wouldn't have multiples of that probably. Most schools are wanting very, I don't know, they're pretty straightforward with what they want to see and from whom. So you're not going to have maybe a tremendous amount of leeway to have these additional letters. And that's kind of what I would think about it as kind of an additional letter. So proceed with caution.
All righty. Ethan asks, have classes such as biopsych and cognitive neuroscience traditionally been accepted as contributing to the BCP MGPA? Both are psychology classes at my school, but are bio and anatomy heavy. I'll take this one because I like answering this one. The application services, TMDSAS, ACOMAS, and AMCAS all have very strict guidelines on what is considered science or not science. With that said, if you feel like they are heavy in biology or anatomy, you don't have to classify based on the code, right? The course code. And I always give the example because it's an easy example. If there's a biology 301 class, right? Bio 301, the title of that class is Writing for Biologists. That's a writing class, right? That's not a biology class. It's an English class. So you wouldn't categorize Bio 301 as a biology course, even though it has a biology prefix. So you have to use some critical thinking here and apply whatever classification you think it should be. And then the application services have a process each individually to adjudicate that information. And sometimes they'll change it and you can appeal. And then they go through a process of reaching out to the school and pulling the syllabus and course information from the school directly. They have their own internal processes for that. But at the end of the day, you have to use some critical thinking and go, is this really an anatomy class? Is it really a biology class? Even though it's listed as psychology. So use your best judgment, and then the application service will do what it will. Eminem. I'm a freshman, but I'm considered a sophomore because of credits from high school. My advisor said I should still try to graduate in 4 years because med schools don't like it when students, quote, rush. Poor students, right? You have this advisor saying you don't rush. And then you have, I was talking to a dean of admissions at a med school that's like, we don't like if you take an extra year because it looks like you're taking it slow and you can't handle the rigor. And it's just like, poor students are caught in the middle and can't win at all. Dina, when you were looking at applications, did that thought ever come into your mind of like, oh, why did you rush? What's going on?
No, and I have read a number of applications from students that were graduating in 3 years. I was one of those students, by the way. I didn't go to med school, but I was one of those students. And everybody's story is different. I mean, if you look at the data from AAMC every year, I think the youngest matriculant to medical school like was 16 years old or something. And I've seen those applicants, believe it or not. They're 16, 17. Everybody's story is different. I'm thinking your advisor is giving you that advice out of caution, just to make sure that you have everything you need, because applying to matriculate right after graduating after 3 years, that's a race to make sure that you are giving yourself enough time to take the MCAT, to gain clinical hours, research hours, etc. So I'm thinking that's where the advice stems from, but everybody's story is different.
Yep, they're all different. Naz asks, how specific should our answers be for secondary questions? Courtney, this seems like a softball question for you.
I've read a few in my day.
You read a few. One of the biggest pieces of
few.
feedback for me when I'm reviewing secondaries is you didn't even attempt to answer the question. What are your thoughts here?
As an evaluator, I don't want a project, right? Just answer the prompt. I'm asking you a question for a reason. These are school-specific questions that they have come up with that serve a purpose for them, no matter what it is. So please just address the prompt. The word count will kind of key you in on how in-depth they want you to be or how succinct they would like you to be, depending on, kind of the latitude they give you there. But be specific. Yeah, answer the prompt. Don't send me on a chase where I'm thinking like, well, I guess I kind of see what they're trying to say. Don't tell me a story that you just want to tell me that doesn't fit or anything like that. So be specific.
Yes. Be specific. It reminds me of the cheerleader chant. Be aggressive. Be. It's like be specific. Be specific.
Yeah.
I don't know why that popped into my head.
There's no Big Daddy quote for this one.
No Big Daddy quote. Just reminiscing about my high school Friday nights.
I'll start calling you Scuba Steve.
Hip Hop Anonymous. He gets all the easy ones.
You give him all the easy ones. You'll just be Scuba Steve now.
Scuba Steve. I'll take it. Megan asks, any thoughts about online pre-med courses? I'm a non-traditional student and will be a full-time nurse and mother. When I start pre-med classes, I will make sure the med schools I apply to accept online work. Megan, sounds like you already answered your question. That's the biggest thing, right? Does the school accept it or do they not? And unfortunately, a lot of schools don't. So that's it.
Especially ones with labs. I've heard so many faculty and so many AdCom meetings want in-person labs. So do what you can, but yeah, double check.
That's it. Yeah, and Hopkins is my go-to reference for this. They changed post-COVID their policies and said, hey, online courses are accepted, period. So good on them.
Nice that they did that.
Laura asks, I was not thrilled with my first MCAT score. How late can I take the MCAT for this year's application cycle, or is it too late? Dina, when a student goes and checks the box that they're going to retake the MCAT, it sends a signal to the school when they're pulling new information that a student has a pending score. Is that
one of my biggest pet peeves. Nothing personal.
Talk about that. Yeah.
So it was a pet peeve. So what happens is if you've submitted your primary and you with your first MCAT score that you were not thrilled with, and you indicated on your AMCAS that you have a future MCAT date, your application is just sitting in purgatory pending as incomplete on the admissions side because the admissions thinks, or the software system that they're using, is expecting another score because you indicated that. So your application could be sitting there for months until that new score is received. And during those months, admissions are evaluating files, inviting students for interviews, completing interviews, potentially even giving offers out. And then on the flip side, if you indicate that future MCAT date, but you don't intend to follow through with it, I would say 9 out of 10 applicants never removed it from AMCAS and then would reach out to admissions and say, what's going on with my application? And you never did what you were supposed to do. Nothing. It's just sitting there. Yes. So there's a lot. While, if you were planning on taking it again and you indicated that later date, just know that there's a lot of movement and action going on that's decreasing your chances behind the scenes.
Yep. Does taking classes at 3 different colleges simultaneously as a non-traditional student look bad? Courtney, non-trads, we love their questions because they're so unique. They have situations where they just can't do things differently. And so my first question back to Alu here is, are you going to change, right? Depending on the answer. If it's what you can do, it's what you can do. From a medical school perspective, when you're building out a rubric going, hey, what do these courses look like and how intense are they? Would you ever think about building in negative points for someone that took classes at multiple schools?
Personally, or in the big scheme of things?
I would love to hear both, right? Because if personally there are things that you could think of that are negative, let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard, I can't say where the chatter was, but from leaders of institutions where if it's kind of a larger number of institutions attended, there is a bit of risk or concern that is introduced. So I can't say that I have not heard that. What weight it's given is going to be a little bit different. I think for non-traditional students, there is some leeway there because we understand that you're just trying to make it work on top of the other things, and we can see that things are going on simultaneously, as opposed to just an undergrad who's kind of flipping between where they're picking and choosing kind of where they want to go for certain classes, which may be strategic on their part, but risky.
They're following the path of least resistance of like, where am I going to get the A?
So we can't look at just, it's just one data point. Again, we look at things in the totality, we'll be able to see the overlap. So is it most ideal? Does it, no, but is it going to be weighed very heavily against you? Not necessarily. Just do well in the classes and show kind of what you're doing during that period of time. And I think people will be pretty understanding, but it's a bit curious, I would say, but yeah.
But again, the question is, what is this student's alternative, right? If that's all they can do to fit in the classes based on their schedules. It is what it is.
If there's a purpose for it, then I think they'll be understanding. Like, I can get on board with that, but there needs to be a valid reason for it.
Yeah, so potential explanation in a secondary or something. Nabil, low science GPA due to Gen Chem and Orgo, currently waiting a response from an SMP. How do I go about doing a do-it-yourself postbac? Took many upper bios already with A's and retook Gen and Orgo with no improvement. Ooh. So already kind of going down a do-it-yourself postbac program by retaking chemistry and Orgo without an improvement. I mean, to answer your question, Nabil, you just take classes. That is a do-it-yourself postbac. Just go to a university and take science classes, ideally upper division ones, and prove your academic abilities. That's easy. Just make some phone calls. Talia, is 40 too old to start the pre-med process? Absolutely not. Let's do it. As we saw with lots of non-trad questions today, we like the old folks.
We do.
Yes, we hand out pre-med advising flyers at the retirement homes. Hey, it's never too late.
They're gritty, you know, non-traditional. I knew I was never going to have problems with my non-traditional students because they had to make a conscious choice to make this pivot in their life. A lot is riding on it. And so I know they really wanted it. They were going to be mature. They were going to buckle down. They were going to take advantage of resources. So I think there's a lot of positives for it. But
Yep.
I'm
like
going to mirror
everybody else,
that.
it's going to be work. Yeah.
I have a former student that started medical school last week and got his white coat and said you can tell. He was a non-traditional student, and he said you can tell those students that were non-traditional and had longer journeys to get here because they had an extra skip in their step. That's what he said.
I love
Nice.
White Coat Day. It's the best day. But yep, you can do it. 40 isn't old.
Commencement?
40's not old.
White coat better than commencement?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so.
I thought White Coat and Match Day. Those are the two they're the best.
Chef's
The best.
Avrina, would starting a scribe position right now and studying for the MCAT and applying next summer give a good chance of getting in? Holy moly, that's an impossible question to answer with such little information. I mean, you're going to have to take the MCAT and apply to get in. So not sure really what the question is. But yeah, start scribing.
Doable.
Mm-hmm. James Sampson asks, in my gap year right now, I have an EMT certification certificate, but also want some more shadowing experience. Would it be good to work as a part-time ENT and scribe or commit to one, clinical versus shadowing? So right off the bat, Courtney, I see the student who says, hey, I want some more shadowing experience. And then they mention scribing as a way to get shadowing experience. Thoughts here?
It's a little bit different. With shadowing, you're there observing the physician. That's just kind of what you're doing. With scribing, you're fulfilling a purpose, right? You're typing in the EMR, you're running calls, you're doing stuff. Yeah, you're working. So it's not really the same thing. I would say, you know, with your EMT certification, at least you have an in with physicians to gather some shadowing, right? Because you're going to be able to build rapport. You're going to have some FaceTime with them and things. So it's a good way to start doing that. But yeah, scribing and shadowing aren't really the same. And, you know, depending on your finances and things like that, it's going to be different. I will say, though, that EMT is a great way to gain clinical hands-on experience, which is part of it. And then also kind of the shadowing, non-direct patient care, you can add in supplementary to that. Is that a word? Yeah, supplementary. Sure. Okay.
Sure.
I would
like
add that in, you know, because direct care for a patient is good experience, right?
So let's ask the question that I think is behind the question here. If a student only has time for one, what is more important, clinical or shadowing?
Depends on what else is in the application. What do you already have some of? You know, what is going to be the most valuable to you in preparing you for med school, for becoming a physician, for providing patient care, right? So either one is fine. But if you don't have any direct patient care, I would say that's a bit of a loss. It's a big question, and it depends on the rest of your record.
Sorry, dealing with a family emergency while I'm live on air. All right, let's keep rocking here.
If you need to jump off, we can moderate. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Luke asks, I'm falling behind the 2-week mark on some secondary essays right now. Any tips to get hard questions done? So what's the answer, right? Dina, there's this mythical 2-week scenario out there, this 2-week rule of thumb that we perpetuate of it's a generally good idea to turn your secondaries around in time. But then there's real life that kind of gets in the way, and stress, and you get behind, and then you stress out even more and get behind even more. Any tips for Luke here?
Yeah, I think just prioritize them, maybe in order of date that you received them. I think also pay attention. Some students miss the fine print for some schools that have like definitely like it has to be in within 15 days or it has to be in within 2 weeks. So make sure that you prioritize those. And I think at this point, just like dedicating, committing yourself to maybe getting one done a day. If you could do more than one, that's great. But if you could get one done a day, one school a day, I think that you'll put a big dent in the process at this point. For difficult questions, you just you have to put the pedal to the metal and really try to utilize the information that is on each school's website, doing your research with, again, their mission, curriculum, different programs, different organizations. But there is no hard 2-week mark unless the school has a specific deadline. But you do run into the risk of, this is a pretty busy time in terms of applications piling up on the side of admissions, and interview invites have started going out at some schools. So, if they're filling seats or interviews, that means they're sending out acceptances down the road, and you want that application to get in as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay. The rolling admissions will get you every time. Yeah, Courtney?
I'd break it down into smaller chunks, right? Do what works for you. If you need to bullet point it, you come up with something that you think fits. You come up with the highlights of it that fit the parts of the prompt, and then you can write from there. Or just record yourself talking about that experience and answering the prompt, and then convert that kind of into a text format. So there's tips and tricks to kind of get through that, but you may be overthinking it. And what you need to start doing is at least get something down, at least get some thoughts down to build off of. So if you need bite size or oral or sounding board or whatever it is, but that's a lot of what we do with students when we meet is we're sounding boards on, well, I thought about this, but I also have this thing, and we can kind of walk them through and see if the depth is there and how they would go about it and stuff. So sometimes you just need to chat it out with somebody.
Yeah. All righty. Carolina asks, multiple W's at community colleges along with poor grades right out of high school, which was almost 20 years ago. Didn't know what I wanted to do back then. Will these bad transcripts be the end all? I love these types of students because they are the ones that come on the Premed Years podcast and go, I was kicked out of college with my 1.7 GPA, and 20 years later realized I wanted to be a doctor, and look at me now. I got into med school with no problems. Dina, these types of students, especially with a 20-year period in between, have a really good ability to show some resilience and show that they're a different person now.
Yes, I think if you can demonstrate that resilience and that upward trajectory, with, additional college courses, an additional degree, any sort of postbac courses, master's degree, that's current, that's who you are now, right? That person 20 years ago, where you got the multiple withdrawals at community college, that's not you anymore. And if you can demonstrate that, that's all you need to do.
Yep. You'll be okay. Just go show you're different now.
Yes.
Megana asks, I've been living in the U.S. since I was 5 years old. I don't have a green card or citizenship yet, and I heard that this is a requirement to apply and get into med schools. Is this true? No, it is not. Lots of international students getting into medical school every year. It's harder, much, much harder. There's only 40-something schools that will accept international students. So That is a big difference. Get working on that green card. That'll help. Tiffany asks, I'm a member of a student org that has clinical volunteering at a free clinic each month that totals 5 to 10 hours a month. Would this be enough for clinical experience as a non-trad? Courtney, is it enough? Is it enough? Tell me I can get in. Right? Is it 5
is
to
it
10
enough?
a month over 2 years, over 10 years, over 1 month? There's a lot of variables here. Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, really, the reason that we ask you guys to get clinical experience is so you can actually experience what it is to care for another human being and know that this is the path forward that you want. There's lots of different healthcare professions out there that can accomplish similar goals. So really ask yourself this question on if you feel like it's enough to be able to answer why physician, why medicine, and answer the in-depth questions about patient care and interactions. You know, if you can also supplement in shadowing here and there, also great, but it's looked at on a case-by-case basis. So there's no, anything above 0 is good, right? So it really is dependent on your application. We understand that non-trads do not have as much time if you're working full-time. It may not be extended periods of time. So not looking at it again in a silo, we look at that in the totality of what's going on at the time to kind of see what you're balancing. So
yeah. That's awesome. You have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
No name. I have my MCAT on 9/9 and I'm applying this cycle. Many schools I saw require a certain MCAT score, which is why I'm waiting to submit my app until my score is in. No name. Don't apply this cycle. Dina, if this student takes the MCAT 9/9, they get their score back theoretically 10/9, right, a month later, and then they're going to submit their application. You're butting up against that kind of October 31st kind of deadline that a lot of schools have for a primary application. And with rolling admissions, applying that late to me is just shooting yourself in the foot.
I think it's too late.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to address the second sentence here. Many schools I saw require a certain MCAT score. Do you know of schools that require a certain MCAT score?
I do not.
Yeah.
I do not. There are averages, right? There's data that's published every year. This was the mean MCAT score.
And median, yeah.
median MCAT score, which is broad. It could be, there could be acceptances significantly below that, significantly above that. But I don't know of any that require a certain MCAT score, unless No Name is referring to schools that screen.
Yep. So there are a handful of schools out there that will say,
again, it's a handful. It's a handful.
Yeah. So out of the 240 schools, maybe there are 20 that have public information that say we screen at a 502 or a 504, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
But yeah. I wouldn't say many schools require a certain MCAT score. That's hyperbolic and false.
I think I've seen some MD PhD programs that'll say anything below this we don't consider competitive, but that's like a specialty path, that's different.
Yep. Apply next cycle, No Name. Make sure you're prepared. Get it going. All right. Razy. But before we answer this, I hope probably anyone who's in Maui or the Big Island or anywhere else is probably not watching this because they don't have power. But I hope everyone is safe out there with those fires. Crazy waking up to all that news. I was just in Maui in March. I know, Dina, you were as well. I don't know if you saw the news about Maui. It's nuts. Anyway,
I saw it this morning. It's nuts.
Yeah.
I hope everyone is safe.
Razy asks, one of my biggest motivators in pursuing medicine is my genuine interest in medical abnormalities as a hobby. Does this make me seem like I view patients as exhibits? Should I keep this to myself?
This is my kind of person.
Yes,
Lazy,
and
lazy.
yes.
I got you. Oddities. I'm in for it. Let's be friends.
Yeah.
But
Keep
yes.
it to yourself, my friend. I have a general pet peeve of students who will write about patients as puzzles. As a patient myself, my wife as a patient, my kid as a patient, like, I don't want you seeing them as a puzzle. Yes, there are things that you have to decipher and diagnose and get to that. I understand the puzzle analogy. I just hate reading it because it makes it feel like this, right? That we're just exhibits and we're just here for you to scratch your puzzle itch. So I don't know. Dina, Courtney, you have thoughts on this one?
No, I
have
agree.
a strong bias here.
Keep it to yourself.
No. Yeah, I mean, the faculty, like people who like worked at a coroner's office to gain experience and things like that. I know of a couple of people, they came across fairly cold, and that was problematic. So yeah, this is probably something where it's a quirk, and you can maybe talk about some of the diseases or things like that if it's relevant and applicable, but I wouldn't talk about it as in regards to a patient. I would kind of separate the two, and yeah, this is a risky territory.
Yeah. As we wrap up here, we have a couple minutes left, probably get to one more question here in 1 second. I want to remind everyone, October 6th through 8th, the whole medical school HQ and Mapped team and the PA platform team, if you are a pre-PA student, will be at Mappedcon in Baltimore, Maryland at the Hilton Inner Harbor for Mappedcon 2023. It is a 3-day conference, Friday night, all day Saturday, and then Sunday until early afternoon. We have early bird ticket sales that are ending soon. You can go get your ticket, but I would love to give away a ticket right now to someone watching who could make it to Mappedcon, again, October 6th through 8th, where we'll have lots of sessions, lots of exhibitors, medical schools there, ready and willing to meet you and talk to you and help you on your journey of getting into medical school or PA school or podiatry school, wherever you want to go. So if you can make it and would like a free ticket, room and stuff is still on you. But if you can make it, Mappedcon presented by Blueprint MCAT. I would be remiss if I didn't mention our friends at Blueprint MCAT. Leave a comment and talk about why you would want to go to Mappedcon, and we'll go through a couple comments and pick a winner. All right. Another question. Matthew asks, as a pre-med, it is easy to compare yourself to others and try to stay on the same timeline that your pre-med peers are on. How do you suggest ways to focus on yourself, your goals, and your timeline? Oh, Dina, put on your therapist hat and tell Matthew to run his own race.
I've never been a therapist. A counselor, yes. Not a therapist. Yeah, so first of all, I think limiting your time on SDN and Reddit, I think you can go down that rabbit hole quite quickly. It's great for some resources, but I've seen it engage a lot of anxiety and a lot of pre-meds and a lot of applicants. And you just got to do your own thing, right? Only you know what works for you. And you have to try to like tune those voices out in a way and maybe put together some sort of structure, some sort of calendar that works for you, where you can kind of set goals and have a timeline and stick to it. Everybody's path is different. Everybody operates in a different way. Some people are more aggressive. Some people are more laid back about things. So only you know who you are and what works for you.
Yeah. Put your blinders on, run your own race. I mean, it's whether you're a pre-med or someone who's trying to keep up with your neighbors and the fancy new car that they got and the new whatever that they got, and you're like, I want that too, and I got a credit card and I can go into debt and just get it. Like, just stop worrying what other people think or care. Like, that's one of the strongest traits that people can have is just don't care about other people's thoughts on you.
It's better to have a strong foundation ahead of starting medical school than to rush into it, be burnt out, or be not as prepared as you thought. Because once it starts, it doesn't stop, basically for the rest of your life, right? Because it's medical school, residency, continuing medical education credits, things like that. So better to really mature and learn and understand the material and give yourself that breathing room on this end, because you're going to be much more prepared on that back end to take this on. So you don't have to rush, and you don't have to stick to somebody else's timelines. You could just say that you are being strategic with yourself and building your foundation, and whatever you think that needs to look like so that you can hit the ground running in med school, then do that, because that will be echoed in your application and in your secondary responses and in your interview content. And we'll get a much better feeling as evaluators in this person feels prepared. They're ready to start. We want them on campus. So it takes a little bit extra time, or it takes less time, like the other person, right? Where you can push through and you're ready to go. You can determine that. But it comes through in how you explain things, how you talk about things. So do what fits you.
Yeah. All right. Do we have any people who have some hopes of going to Mappedcon and getting a free ticket? P.S. Requesting a ticket. I am local and would love to learn more for my next application cycle. Awesome. P.S. That is great. Anyone else? Diane says, I'm really looking forward to the dinner for non-trads on Friday night. So it's not a dinner Friday night. It is just a whole evening of talks and other stuff. So just to clarify there. And all the great informational sessions to help me prepare for applying to medical school. Awesome, Diane. That would be great. Talia said, would love to go to Mappedcon to be inspired, to learn how to suture, to make connections with other pre-meds, learn what schools are looking for, sharpen my social skills. The list goes on. Yes, it does. The list goes on. Awesome. 3 great replies. Any other ones?
You guys should come to this, though. I know I'm on my soapbox about this a lot, but we invited medical schools and programs that we know and are familiar with, and they're sending their representatives there. Some of them are going to be directors of admission, and you can go and get FaceTime and start building this rapport. When everything is virtual and everything is digitized, this is your opportunity to get over that hurdle and advocate for yourself and make connections and build rapport and get a sense of them, and they can get a sense of you. It's not just numbers on a page anymore at that point. So plus workshops, right? We can help you whether you're in the application process or not. We've got a bunch of stuff that's going to be incredibly helpful and informative, and but this is your opportunity to stop being a number on a page. Get there in person. It matters. So it's worth the time, and it's worth the funds to do that.
Yep. All right. We had 4 great responses. I think we should give away 4 tickets today. So all of you who we put your comment on the page, reach out to info@mapped.com. That's INFO @mapped, MAPPD.com, and we'll get you set up with a free ticket to Mappedcon. Excited to see you all there. As Carolina said, it is worth flying out to Baltimore for this. If you're local Baltimore, we picked Baltimore specifically because it's a great location, that tri-state area, that kind of mid-Atlantic area that a lot of people can travel by car or train, and flying as well. So come hang out with us. Super excited. We are 58 days away. Is that right, Veronica? 58? 58. The final countdown. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Yeah, we're there. We're there. Courtney's like, who is this guy? Awesome, my friends. Tina, Courtney, thank you for hanging out with me today and answering some great questions and sharing your wisdom with everyone. Reminder for everyone, we are here almost every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, premed.tv, where you can get your questions answered for free. And go check out mapped.com, mappd.com. All right, that's it. See you later, friends.
Bye.